guys, how's it going? It's Al. I've got a Thursday night football single game showdown breakdown for you right here for week 3. The Miami Dolphins and the Jacksonville Jaguars competing for, I don't know what, 2/3 of the possible championship of Florida. Maybe we can get Tampa Bay involved somewhere down the road, whatever. I think we've got a really sneaky fun game here, even though we don't have, people see Miami against Jacksonville. Oh, this is going to be a bad game. It's going to be slow. It's going to be low scoring. It's going to be, we're going to play defense. It's going to be sloppy. It's going to be ugly. This game opened with a total of 44. The total has moved drastically up to 48. It went through 47, 47 and a half earlier today. As I was recording, it is Tuesday night when I'm recording this. It is now at 48 for the total here. There's a lot of scoring that could possibly happen in this game from both sides. Neither defense really does anything fantastic in a way to stop what the other team can do. We have two quarterbacks that like to push the ball. Minshew, for his potential fumbling problems, doesn't really turn the ball over that much. Fitzmagic, when he gets from behind, and Miami does play from behind a lot, he is more likely to really push the ball down the field and get him some totals. And I think we've got some very interesting value plays on this slate that you can sprinkle in, whether you're hand building lineups, whether you're building a lineup builder, to build your 1, 3, 10, 20, 50, or 150 lineups for this slate. I usually don't like Thursday night football games, and you guys have been here on the channel for years. You understand that they usually just throw the bad teams up here because every team has to get a primetime game, and this is an easy way for them to knock out two teams at once. But this game does look like it's going to be fun. I'm really hoping that it turns into a shootout, because that just makes for much more fun on a showdown slate than like a game that's 17-9. So let's get into it. Before we get to the actual thing, you guys have been super kind recently with all the new subscribes, all you guys that have hit the notifications bell. That's right, I know who does it because I get those analytics from YouTube. The replies, the likes on all the videos, you guys have been absolutely crushing it, and I really, really appreciate every single one of you. So I wanted to say thank you to you, the viewers, first and foremost, before we get to the video. We've got both quarterbacks, as I've already mentioned. Minshew has done a really good job this year. He did have 2 interceptions against Tennessee, 3 touchdowns in both games. He's been doing actually a pretty good job of protecting the ball. As I said, he's more likely to fumble than he is to turn it over with an interception, but interceptions don't really kill you in DFS if you are actually being productive. Got the 300-yard bonus in week 2 against Tennessee as well. This is a situation where Miami should not provide all that much resistance, and the Jaguars aren't going to provide that much resistance towards Fitzmagic either. So we could see both teams really just marching up and down the field and getting themselves into position either for field goals, because they don't really have the ability, these two teams, to score touchdowns every time they get into the red zone. But there should be a lot of scoring opportunities here. So as always, I talk about the groups that I'm going to build in a lineup builder. Now look, I've heard from a bunch of you, we don't use lineup builders. We don't use optimizers. We don't build 150 lineups. The things that I'm telling you in every one of these videos for Single Game Showdown is extremely applicable to how you should be thinking about building your lineups, whether you're using a lineup builder or whether you're building by hand. If you are going to play a quarterback in your captain spot, you need to have at least 2 of his pass catchers in that group. So looking at some of the other players on this slate, James Robinson is doing a fantastic job in his first year as Jacksonville's starting running back. I don't know that you need to include him in a group with Minshew. Instead, I'm going to be including DJ Chark. He's got a big red Q by his name, limited participant on Tuesday. Until we hear otherwise, I'm expecting that he's going to go. Laviska Shenault Jr., one of Draft Twitter's favorite players. 4 targets in each of the first 2 games. They are utilizing him in the rushing game as well, with 5 attempts in week 2, 2 attempts in week 1. He's 6,600 in the flex. We're going to include him in the group with Minshew as well. Eifert has seen a good amount of red zone and end zone targets so far. Keelan Cole as well. Conley is only 2,200 here. There's a lot of really good value plays in this slate that is going to help you really add up, to get the players that you want. I'm going to be including Chris Thompson in my Minshew groups. I will also be including the kicker in my Minshew at captain groups. So it's a bigger group than normal because there's no real dominant player or players on this Jacksonville offense that are going to garner all that much. So I want to make sure when I'm building lineups that I know who the pass catchers are, and I'm going to focus on building lineups through and around those guys. The secondary group that I'm going to build when I've got Minshew at captain is going to be built around the bring back. Now, this means I need at least one of the players that is on Miami. That's going to include the quarterback also. That's going to include the running backs, Parker, Gesicki, Gaskin, who has taken over the job at running back to some degree there. He's getting really good usage, not getting the inside the 5 carries, but his usage in the passing game is extremely valuable on DraftKings. Jordan Howard is the one that's getting the goal line carries, but also not getting an awful lot of run. They're not going to play from ahead very much this year, are the Dolphins. So to me, Gaskin is the more, not talented, but the more attractive guy in terms of daily fantasy, especially full PPR like DraftKings. Preston Williams, in his second year, 6,800, you're going to have him on this slate, and he's definitely going to be involved in that group as well. As we get cheaper, you have guys like Jakeem Grant, punt returner, but not going to see a lot of volume. He's one of those guys that you're punting as a one-off in these lineups to try and get you there. And we've seen those guys do work on these single game showdown slates. Just on Monday Night Football with the Raiders and the Saints, we saw Jalen Richard get in for a touchdown, scored you like 8-9 points from that. You also had the fullback get in for a touchdown. So these low dollar punt type plays can actually get you there without having to utilize one of the higher price guys. The other guy who I think is more involved and more likely to really pay off his salary here and come with a really massive percentage in the bigger field tournaments and even in single entry ones would be somebody like Isaiah Ford, who was only 3K in the flex, has seen 14 targets through 2 weeks and done a good enough job. So you're just going to rack up points for 3K. And honestly, it's a little bit easier to do that than having to pay up to get a kicker. The kicker is going to have the better floor than the position player, just because a kicker should get you 7 to 9 points every single week. But for a kicker to get massive upside is much more difficult. If Isaiah Ford was to break, let's say, a 50-yard touchdown, right? He catches a short pass, he breaks one tackle, and he's off to the races. All of a sudden, he's got a 25, 30-point expectation. You plug that player into your captain spot, and you just can jam everybody else in there, right? So, like, if we were to plug him in at 4,500, because you got the 1.5, right? You got the 1.5 times multiplier. If we were to plug Isaiah Ford in here, you can basically afford anything that you want. You have an average player salary in the flex of 9,100. You can get both quarterbacks in there. You can play Devontae Parker. You could get Gesicki. You could get him. Like, you can stack everything with Ford and captain. I expect him to be extremely popular on this slate. You can basically do whatever it is that you want to do if you go with a cheap captain like him who's getting volume. But for that to pay off, he's going to have to get into the end zone, because your captain should theoretically be the highest scoring guy that you have in any lineup whenever you play Showdown. Next part that I always talk about with the captains, as good as quarterbacks are and any projections that you're using, a quarterback's going to have the highest median projection of any player. So if you're using an optimizer, it's going to try and jam them into more lineups than it really should in terms of how many quarterbacks can actually win you a Showdown. Now, next Monday night, when we've got Patrick Mahomes and we've got the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson, those are two quarterbacks that can put up a 35 to a 40-point day. You give them 1.5 times, all of a sudden they're at 55 or 60 points for a single game. Different story. That's really not what's going to happen with a drop-back quarterback. I know Minshew can get after it a little bit with his legs, but it's not something that we're going to bank on from him as that massive, massive day. If he has a big day and throws for multiple touchdowns, it's more likely that one of the players that he's throwing to, or the running back, is going to have the higher expectation in captain, the higher ceiling in captain. So when you're building those lineups through a lineup builder, I would suggest trying to find a way, and every lineup builder has it, no matter which one you're using, whether it's RG or whether it's Daily Roto or anything else, for you to sort by either ceiling projections or like a 75th percentile projection instead of the standard ones. And secondly, because only about 15% of showdowns are won with a quarterback in the captain spot. I personally like to limit drop back quarterbacks, just like we had on Monday night with Carr and with Breeze. Most likely what we have here, I know that Fitzmagic led the team in rushing touchdowns and yards last year for the Dolphins, and Minshew has some ability with his legs. But these are more mobile quarterbacks, and they're not like big time rushing quarterbacks. They're not Kyler Murray, they're not Lamar Jackson, they're not Cam Newton, where you're really looking to plug guys like that into the captain spot. I'm still going to limit these guys so that I only get like between 7 and 10% in my captain spot. And if you're building by hand and you have 10 lineups, you probably shouldn't have more than one lineup that has either one of these quarterbacks in your captain spot, because you don't want to do that. A, they don't win as much. B, the field is always overweight on captain quarterbacks. The next groups that we have to focus on are our pass catchers. Every lineup that has DJ Chark or any one of the Jacksonville pass catchers is going to be grouped with Minshew in that lineup. Again, if you're building by hand, make sure that you do this. If you're building a lineup builder, add this to the rules and groups. I mean, I can just leave Minshew in here and go through each one of them. The same thing is going to go for LaVisca at captain. The same thing is going to go for all those different options that I put into that group, whether we're going to go with Keelan Cole there at captain, or whether you want to get a little bit frisky and go with somebody like Chris Thompson at captain, who has seen a pretty good amount of usage so far, but is going to be extremely touchdown dependent as far as if you're going to play him in the captain spot. For me, the cheap captain would be Ford, and I think that that's going to be I think that should be a popular route to go. Whether or not it's going to pay off, I don't know, but I think you're going to see a lot of those lineups. Same thing goes for the other side as we're building teams around any of the Dolphins pass catchers, whether it's going to be, Parker in the captain spot. Again, he has got a nagging little injury that he's dealing with. A lot of veterans are given the week off on a short week, right? They don't need to practice. Devontae Parker does not need the Tuesday practice. Obviously, before the game locks, an hour and a half, we'll get the actives and inactives. So we'll know definitely in the NFL who's going and who's not, unless their name is Tyrod Taylor. And then we might not know. But other than Tyrod Taylor, we'll probably know. So any lineup that has Parker in the captain spot, I'm going to make sure that Fitzpatrick is attached to him. Same goes for Gesicki in captain. Same goes for Preston Williams in captain. Same thing goes for not Howard, but Isaiah Ford. If he's the captain, I will be sure that Fitzmagic is in that lineup. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about here is the kickers and the defenses. More than typically, I will make sure that I don't have any more than one of these guys in the groups. I will include the kickers in my captain quarterback groups because kickers are a little bit higher correlated with a captain. They're more correlated with a quarterback than people are willing to let on. And you can end up with a winning lineup because points are points, and 1 or 2 points in single game showdown can amount to like 500 places in the standings. So if you get down to the end of the game and it's not really all that many players that have scored a ton and you need that savings, getting a kicker that has 8, 9, 12 points can really, really boost your team up, as opposed to getting that cheaper guy that didn't have a ceiling game for you. But it's something that I do try to limit in my overall lineups. Typically, I'll build this group. I'll make sure that none of my lineups have more than one kicker or defense in any one of them in the flex spots. And I am never I'm not going to say never because there's probably a situation where I might do it. I'm probably not going to be playing kickers ever as a captain, and I will most likely not be playing defenses as a captain unless it's some gross mismatch situation where it looks like the other team is missing 3 offensive linemen and is going to have to drop back to pass 35, 40 times, and it's going to be a sack fest with like 5 to 12 sacks for the opposing defense. Would be about the only time that I'm ever going to plug a defense into the captain spot. You're wasting your equity, you're wasting your money if you do that. So try to stay away from doing that. Hopefully this video helped you. I wish you the absolute best of luck on Thursday night single game showdown. Let me know how you did. Jump into the Discord. Be a part of it. I'll see you on Twitch. Bye.
He's a legend.